Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. We are speeding through the Bermuda set currently, making as many videos as we can, getting all the decks done so that we can catch up to standard. For those of you who still want to see like the last few decks in G format, which would be the Bermuda set. A couple things to mention is I'm going to be making a new channel soon. So when that goes live, you guys will be able to see the details of that. I will make a post about it or a video about it or something. And basically you guys will be in the loop about my new channel. And then secondly, I wanted to say to those of you who have been patient with all of the old videos being uploaded for, like, it's kind of like 75% of my community wants to see new stuff and 25% of my community wants to see like some of the old decks and like me not skip steps and stuff like that. So I definitely want to talk to the 75% and just say I appreciate you guys sticking around and kind of being patient with me as I go through all the Bermuda stuff and all the things that have been happening in my life. But yeah, let's get right into the deck. Today we're going to be talking about the G-CB07 Riviere deck. This deck is actually pretty fun, in my opinion. You can also combine it with like the Chocho Spica combo, if you guys know about that, like the Chocho Lucille Spica combo, if you really want to. But we just went pure Riviere in this build. So let's talk about how to run the pure Riviere build. So first we have 4 Top Idol Riviere. This is basically a blast from the past. This card came out like way in the original cards, but they finally found a way to make this deck kind of like can fight again on good terms, because the first way that they tried to make it be able to fight when they updated it is giving it a Legion, and that Legion was just like really bad, I remember, because it did restand, but the cost was like massive compared to other restanders at the time, so it just wasn't as great. But Top Idol Riviere has 2 abilities. The first ability is a continuous Vanguard skill that says if you have a Super Idol Riviere in its soul, this unit gets plus 1000 power. So this is a ride chain deck, so it requires the previous piece in your soul to get like up 1k in base power. So the card that it's referring to is this card, Super Idol Riviere. So if you have the grade 2 in your soul, basically this unit will become 11k base. And then the second ability, which we never really use, but I guess you could if you ride up to grade 3 before your opponent and you don't have a choice. You counterboss 2 and choose a Top Idol Riviere from your hand and discard it when this card attack hits. And then if you do, you choose up to 3 of your Bermuda Triangle rear guards, and those units hit plus 5k. I personally don't think it's worth the discard, but up to you guys, and it's kind of up to what situation you're in. If your opponent's at 5 damage, if you were somehow able to crit them really hard in the early game, and then they're at 5 damage when this attack hits, and you can put 5k on 3 rear guards and try to pressure them for game, then by all means. But otherwise, I don't think that it's very useful. I think we just use it to ride into it, also because choice demands it basically as a part of its combo piece, and then also it fits well with the Riviere ride chain with drawing cards. Our second grade 3 is our actual new grade 3 that they released in the set, which is Spirited Star Choice. So Choice is a little different in this. So Choice used to be the Legion that they tried to update it with, but Choice is a little different in this set just because it is actually a new grade 3 that's being released that is not the main grade 3 that we're trying to ride. So you never want to ride Choice because she's kind of useless on the Vanguard circle, but you want to have her in your hand or on the rear guard circle. That's where she matters the most. So let's talk about her 2 abilities. The first ability actually activates from hand. So if she's in your hand, you can counterboss 1, call this card to rear guard circle, and choose the card from your hand and return it to your deck. And then if you have a grade 2 or greater Vanguard, search your deck for 1 Top Idol Riviere and write it as stand. And then if that card calls on a grade 3 unit, so basically if we ride over a grade 3, we already had a grade 3 and we ride a new Top Idol Riviere over our grade 3, then we choose a face down card from our G zone with Riviere in its name, and then we stride it and shuffle our deck. So this allows us to stride even when our opponent's like grade 2. If we go first and we ride to 3 first and we have a choice and we have a counter boss, we can stride on them while they're grade 2. So It's kind of like Sabreeze in a way, but it's even more powerful just because it puts this card back on your rearguard circle, and then it allows you to put a card back from your hand to the deck. So that card can be a trigger. That card can be a top idle Riviere. If you have a lot of top idle Rivieres in your hand, you wouldn't be able to search deck for one. It's just very, very good. And then the second ability is when you're grade 4 or greater Vanguard with Riviere and its card name attacks, you can Soul Blast one and restand this unit. So basically what this deck consists of is attacking with the rearguards first, then attacking with Vanguard, and the rearguards will do some kind of skill to restand or recall themselves to the board, which will result in a restand, with just minus power if it got trigger power. Then let's talk about our grade 2 lineup. We have 4 Super Idol Riviere. So the 2 abilities of Super Idol Riviere is the first one. If you have a card named Mermaid Idol Riviere and its card name, this unit gets plus 1000k. So that's the grade 1. So basically, if you have the grade 1 Riviere in your soul, this card gets plus 1k base, turning into a 10k on yours and your opponent's turn. And then the second ability is when a card named Top Idol Riviere rides on top of this unit. If you have a card with Mermaid Idol Riviere in your soul, you draw a card. So basically, when you ride to Top Idol Riviere, the grade 3, if you have a Mermaid Idol Riviere in your soul, then you can draw a card, which is, just a free plus. Really good. Then we have 4 Maturity Talent Selena. This is another one of the cards released in this set. It actually helps fix your ride chain. Selena and Fria are just basically very, very good versions of fixing your ride chain in this deck. So let's talk about his 2 abilities. We have another Activate from Hand ability in the form of Selena. So what Selena does is if you have a Vanguard with Mermaid Idol Riviere in its name, which is basically the grade 1, then you can put this card into your soul, and then choose a card from your hand and discard it. And then you search your deck for 1 Super Idol Riviere, ride it to Vanguard to stand, and then you shuffle your deck. And then you would draw a card because of Super Idol riding on top of Mermaid Idol. So pretty good. It fixes your ride chain. Not much to say about that. It's just a break even because of the draw that you would get from it. You do put this card in the soul. Well, I guess it is kind of like a -1 because you put this card in the soul and you discard a card, and then you ride a Riviere, so you're getting a card back, kind of. I guess it's just a break even either way because it's like a -2/+2. Then the second ability is when your Vanguard with Riviere and its card name attacks, you can return this card to your hand. If you do, call it to rearguard circle. So this basically allows you like a really good early game pressure against your opponent. You're able to just recall cards to the board really easily by playing like the grade 2 game. You can attack with 2 Selenas and then attack with Vanguard, and both Selenas will call themselves back to the field, making them standing position. And then if your opponent doesn't check a trigger, that sucks for them, and you can just continue to attack them basically, which is really good. Then we have 3 Limpid Chorus Miriam. What Miriam does, I don't think we ever used her in our actual games because she just never came up, but Miriam's skill is when it's on the rearguard circle and this unit attacks a Vanguard. If we have a Super Idol Riviere on our Vanguard or in our soul, until the end of the battle, this unit gets plus 2000 power and an on-hit ability. And the on-hit ability is when this attack hits, countercharge 1, soul charge 1. So not much to say beyond that. It is a way to refund some of our resources if our opponent is willing to let it hit. And then otherwise than that, it's just an 11k attacker. Then moving on to our grade 1s, we have 4 Mermaid Idol Riviere. This card's first ability says if you have a card named Bermuda Triangle Cadet Riviere in your soul, this card gets plus 1000. So obviously this is the grade 0 that we're referring to. So if you have the grade 0 in your soul, this card becomes an 8k base. And then the second ability is when a card named Super Idol Riviere rides this unit. If you have a card with Bermuda Triangle Cadet Riviere in your soul, you draw a card. So basically, when Super Idol Riviere rides on top of this card, if you have the grade 0 in the soul, you draw a card. Pretty simplistic. Then we have for our PG, we have 4 Transcend Idol Aqua. Aqua has 2 abilities. The first one is a Sentinel ability, but it has something additional to its Sentinel ability, unlike the other PGs in the game. So Sentinel usually means that you can only run 4 Sentinels in your deck. But Aqua's special skill is if all the Sentinels in your deck are Transcend Idol Aqua, you can include up to 6 Sentinels in your deck. So you can actually run 6 PGs in this deck if you wanted to. But we're actually only running 4. Not really useful space-wise to use 6. Just doesn't matter to us that much. And then the second ability is when this unit is placed on guard circle from hand. You can choose a card from your hand, put into your soul. And then if you do, you choose one of your units and it cannot be hit until the end of the battle. And then if the number of sentinels in your drop zone is 2 or more, choose all your rear guards and they cannot be hit until the end of the turn. So basically this card works as a PG, but instead of discarding, you put the card into your soul that you would normally discard. And then if you have 2 or more sentinels in your drop zone, all your rear guards can't be hit, which is really good. Then we have 4 Immaculate symbol Fria. This is probably one of the most MVP cards in the deck, to be honest, just because of its second ability. But let's talk about its first ability first. It is a activation effect that activates while this card is in the hand. So if you have a grade 0 Vanguard, you can put this card in your soul, choose a card from your hand and discard it, and then search your deck for 1 Mermaid Idol Riviere, write it to Vanguard as stand, and shuffle your deck. So another thing that's just like Selena, but it's a grade 1, and it fixes your ride chain if you don't have the pieces. And so in this deck, we basically always get to the ride chain because you literally have to have like a really terrible hand to not have the ride chain. Because in order for the grade 1, you either have Mermaid Idol Riviere or you can fix it with Fria. For the grade 2, you either have Super Idol or you can fix it with Selena. And then for the grade 3, you can just have Top Idol or fix it with Choice. So literally it's just, you know, it's a fixed ride chain all the way around. If you don't get it, you're just super unlucky. And then our second ability is all of your Vanguards with Riviere in its name gets a skill that says all of your rear guards cannot be chosen by the effects of your opponent's card. So this does protect us against like Link Joker and all those type of matchups. Link Joker, Gear Chronicle, Kagero, all these cards that are control out here. Fria makes sure that every single one of your rear guards cannot be touched as far as abilities, which is really good. Just because it saves you from, you know, having to protect your rear guards constantly from abilities, or I guess your opponent has to waste attacks to attack into your rear guards to destroy your rear guards that they get really annoyed with. So that is good for us because we can just block them, and there's no like skill that will just get rid of it while we have no say-so. So that's really good. Then we have 2 Lunchmaker Ica to finish out our grade 1 lineup. Ica's ability is pretty simplistic. When this card is placed on a rearguard circle, if we have a grade 2 or greater Vanguard with Riviere in its name, we can put a card from our hand into the soul, and then we draw a card. So it builds our soul, but also fixes our inner workings of our soul with Riviere cards if we don't have it already. Then for our starter, we run 1 Bermuda Triangle Cadet Riviere. This card has 2 abilities. The first one is when a Mermaid Idol Riviere rides on top of this unit, we can look at the top 7 cards of our deck for a Super Idol Riviere or a Top Idol Riviere, add it to our hand, and then shuffle the remaining cards back into the deck. So when we ride the grade 1 over the grade 0, basically, we can look at the top 7 and either grab the grade 2 or the grade 3, which is really good. The second ability, which you never want to use ever in this deck, but it is when you ride a Bermuda Triangle unit other than Mermaid Idol Riviere, you can call this unit back to a rearguard circle. So the reason why I say you never want to use this ever is because you literally have to ride Ica or Aqua to be able to use that skill, and you don't want to do that if you have Fria or Mermaid Idol Riviere. Like I said, if you don't get it, you're just super unlucky because this deck is really consistent. Then for our triggers, we run 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal. We ran, for our beginning crit, we ran 4 Chocho Roberta. Basically just allows us to, during the main phase, when it's on the rearguard circle, put this card in the soul, countercharge 1. So it refunds our soul and it refunds our counter boss as well, just resource management, really good. Then we have 4 Popping Melody Layla. We never actually used this card, but when this card boosts, you can counter boss 1 and return this card to your hand. If you do, you double the boosted unit's power, and if that unit has Generation Break 2, then it gets critical +1. So Layla would basically be very useful when we're boosting it with when we have choice and then choice restands, and then we use the skill to double the power to like 32 or something like that. If we think that our opponent can't block it, but honestly we never used it. There's just better options like Fria and Ica to have on the rearguard circle, to be honest. Then we have 2 Chocho Pite and 2 Heartful Yale Fundy. They both do the same thing. They're both Margot clones. They both shove into the soul while they're on during the main phase to give a Bermuda unit 3K. And the reason why we ran 2-2 is because I like the arts, and we're not like restricted in this deck to any archetypes like Chocho name or something like that. So we'd also make our opponent think that we run more than 4 draw triggers, even though we only run 4. Then we have 4 Chocho Marina. Chocho Marina is basically our new heal trigger that says when we G-guard, if we have 2 or more heals in the drop zone, we can bind 2 of the heals, and then we can countercharge 1 or soul charge 1. Basically just more resource management. Moving on to our stride zone, we have our ultimate stride for Magdalena, which is Zero Dragon of Distance C Megiddo. I've talked about this card plenty of times, so you guys should already know what's up. But it is an ultimate stride, so you do have to have 3 face-up cards in your G-zone before you even try to attempt to go into it. And then you have to discard a card from your hand that's the same name as your Vanguard. So then at the end of the turn, if you fail to kill your opponent, then your whole G-zone gets bound and you cannot get it back. So do be very careful when you're going to ultimate stride as usual, because it is kind of like an ultimate risk, ultimate reward type scenario. Then we have its skill, which is when this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, Counterboss 2. If you do, choose up to 5 cards in total from your hand or drop zone, call them to separate Rearguard Circle, and then to the end of the turn they get plus 5,000 power, and then it gets a Rearguard skill that says at the end of the battle that this unit attacked, choose one of your other Rearguards and you may exchange positions with this unit. So the only thing that I could see Megiddo being very, very good for in this deck is honestly just calling 4 choice out, making sure that you have 4 choice. Maybe they all hit the drop zone because your opponent destroyed them, and then you can stride with the top idle Riviere, go into Megiddo if your opponent's at 5 damage, and then call 4 choice to the field and 1 of something else, and then you can attack with 4 choice, and then when your Vanguard attacks, basically you just Soul Blast 4, and then you restand all 4 choices, which ensures you another 4 attacks, so you'll be getting 9 attacks in the turn that are at least 10k shield or more. So your opponent has to have at least 9 cards in their hand, and then all the cards in their hand have to be enough to block what you're attacking them with. So that's a pretty good combo for those of you who are wondering. Then we have 2 Chocho popular favor, Tirwa. This card can be very good with choice as well, just because choice's skill to restand is not once per turn. So we can attack with our Rearguards and then attack a Vanguard. Choice skill restand, and then we use Tirwa's skill to restand Tirwa, and then attack with choice, attack with Chocho Tirwa again, etc. That is if we make it there, however, because most of our opponents die after 2 legendary idol Riviere turns, because we really just go into this first because it's just Riviere, and it choice allows us to stride for free into it, so pretty good. But Tirwa's abilities are, first it has an axe skill. Once per turn, choose a card from your G-zone, turn it face up, and then this unit gets a skill that says all the units with Chocho in your front row get 5k for each of your open rearguard circles. And then the second ability is Generation Break 3 once per turn. At the end of the battle that this unit attacked, choose up to 3 of your rearguards, put them on the bottom of your deck in any order, and if 3 cards were put to the bottom, then you stand this unit and it gets -2 drive. So like I said, very good. Bermuda Restander, most Bermuda decks run it. Not much to say about that besides that. So then we run 4 of the Legendary Idol Riviere Stride. Legendary Idol Riviere has an activation skill that says Counterboss 1 and choose a card with the same name as this unit, turn it face up. And then, so you Counterboss 1 and flip a Legendary Idol Riviere. Then you choose up to the same number of Rearguards as the number of cards with Riviere in your soul. Riviere cards in your soul. So you should have, like, if you did the whole ride chain properly, you should have 2 or 3 cards with the Riviere ride chain cards in your soul, and then you can choose 3 Rearguards that get plus 5,000 power, and then if you have 3 or more face-up cards in the G-zone, draw a card. This unit gets plus 10,000 and a critical, and that's about it. If it just becomes a really big beater, it makes your Rearguards beaters as well. But that's also just very good because sometimes without your Riviere making them beaters, they wouldn't be able to attack on their own efficiently. So then we run 2 school Etoile, I don't know, that's a French word. Let's talk about 2 Olivia, let's just say that. So we do run 2 Olivia. Olivia's skill is when this unit attacks a Vanguard. If the number of cards in your G-zone is, the number of face-up cards in your G-zone is 1 or more, you can Counterboss 1 and flip an Olivia from your G-zone face up. If you do, choose up to 5 of your Rearguards, and if all the chosen units have different card names, return them to your hand. And if the number of returned cards is 3 or more, choose up to 2 cards from your hand, call them to separate Rearguard circle, 1 in the front row, 1 in the back row, and this unit gets +1 critical until the end of the battle. So this card allows us to multi-attack. We never really went into this card. It was never really that useful to us because because we never had to make it that far in the game where we had to use it. Our opponent mostly dies on Legendary Idol Riviere, or we just use Chochotirua skill and they die on Chochotirua, or they die on Megiddo. So there's just like a lot of reasons why we have never gone into this, but it's just there for a just in case scenario. Then we have one perfect performance Ange. What Ange does is it has an activation once per turn skill, Generation Break 2, Counterblast 2, and choose a card in your G-Zone, turn it face up. Choose any number of cards on any fighter circle other than Vanguard circle and return them to hand. This unit gets plus 5,000 for every returned card until the end of the turn. And if you return 5 or more cards, then you draw a card. And if you return 7 or more cards, this unit gets plus one drive until the end of the turn. So something important to notice about Ange is the only reason why we run it is because it helps us get around Link Joker. If we have lots of cards on our board, Ange will allow us to return those cards to our hand because it does target cards and it doesn't target rearguard circles, so we will be able to clear our field of blocked cards. We can also clear our opponent's board of anything dangerous that they have that might be sitting on their field that would help them defensively. And then this card obviously will get plus 5,000 for every card bounced, and then it will get plus 1 drive if you return 7 or more, which is basically like 5 of your cards and 2 of your opponent's. So not much that's heavy of a cost unless your opponent just doesn't have rear guards on the board. Which, if they're playing Link Joker, which is the only reason that you would go into this anyways, they will probably have rear guards. So then we run our GB8, which is a Festal Finale, Final Priscilla. The Generation Break 8 ability is at the end of the battle that this unit attacks a Vanguard. We can choose a card from our hand and discard it. If we do, we return all of our rear guards to the hand, and we can choose up to 5 cards from our hand, call them to rear guard circle, and then they all get plus 5,000 power. So just allows us more multi-attacks in this deck. It's honestly not that useful just because we have cards like Troyce and cards like Selena that already make themselves able to attack another time at the end of the battle. So, and then it also allows you, it doesn't allow you trigger effects really unless you're stacking them on Vanguard, because at the end of the battle, any cards that it would that would have trigger effects, the trigger effects would be lost because it bounces all the cards to your hand. So it's just like a card. Like, use it when you need to, it's fine when you don't, type thing. Then we run 5 G-Guardians. The first G-Guardian that we run is Best Sparkle Sandy. Sandy has a Generation Break 1 ability that says when this unit is placed on guard circle, you can flip a G-Guardian face up from your G-Zone. If you do, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield for every 2 cards in your hand until the end of the battle. Then if you, then after that, you may counter boss 1, and if you do, this card gets plus 5,000 more shield until the end of the battle. So, pretty good card. Obviously, the more cards you have in your hand, the bigger shield this can make. But you can counter boss 1 to give it that extra oomph for shield. If you're like 5k away from a no pass or something, you might as well counter boss 1 to make it a no pass instead of giving your opponent the chance to pass or attack. Then we have 2 Luxury Wave Ellie. This is one of our new G guards that came out of this set. It has 2 pretty good abilities. The first ability is on the guard circle. This unit gets plus 10,000 shield for every face-up Luxury Wave Ellie in your G-Zone and every Sentinel in your drop zone. So the more PGs that you have in your drop zone and the more Ellies that you have face-up, the bigger this card can guard for. And then the Generation Break 2 ability is when this card is put into your G-Zone face-up from being used. You Soul Blast 1 and you can turn this card back face down. So this card is really good because we can use Sandy first and flip Ellie, and then we can just use Ellie for the rest of the game as far as G-Guarding, and it'll just be really big with the more PGs and stuff that we have in our drop zone, and then the Ellie that we have face up. So it will already be a 36k block, which is equal to Citron, which means that there's no reason to really use Citron at that point. But Citron's ability before that, if we have to G-Guard before that, we can go into Citron. And then Citron's ability is when this unit is placed on guard circle, choose up to 1 grade 1 or greater card from your hand and call it to the rear guard circle. If we call a unit, then this unit gets plus 10,000 shield. So it can be a free 36k block. Not much to say about that. It has a pretty simplistic effect. Just guards for 36 where Ellie can't in scenarios, but a lot of the times you just want to use Sandy first, flip Ellie, and then just use Ellie for the rest of the game, unless you're in just some kind of weird bad scenario, or you're not GB1, so you can't use the skill of Sandy, of the G-Guard Sandy. So we're loading this up, and we're loading up Riviere Game 1. So we're playing against Link Joker, actually, first game. So we use Fria's skill, because we don't have the grade 1 in our hand, to call top idol. We check top 7, we get the grade 2, and then we just attack for 8. We get a draw trigger. Our opponent rides, attacks us, we get a crit. We ride the grade 2, we draw a card, and then we call 2 grade 2s. Unfortunately, our rush goes to really crap because he checks a heal trigger. But he does ride and attack us and then check a draw, or we check a draw. So we ride, we draw, and then we use the skill of choice to call it the Rigard Circle. And then we ride another top idle Riviere because we can stride before him. And then we use the skill of Riviere to give 5k to our units, and then we place Frias on the board. When our Vanguard attacks, Selena bounces itself and choice restands itself. So we check draw, crit, heal. So our opponent takes 2 damage. Then we attack with 16 and then 31. So our opponent tries to lock our cards, but he can't because we have Fria on the board, so none of them can be targeted. So he just draws 2 for Altani. And then he calls close, and then he attacks us for 18 to our Vanguard. We guard. He attacks us for 35. We no guard. He gets a heal trigger, a PG, and a crit. So pretty good on his end. We take 2 damage, and then we block with a 10k for our Vanguard. We stride when it comes to our turn. We go into Riviere again. We use the skill Counterblast to give power to our Rigards. So we attack for 14, then 16. We attack with Vanguard skill. They restand themselves as usual. We get a crit, putting it all to choice, and then we attack for 21. So our opponent strides with 2 cards into Deluge. Discards 1, makes us play 2 locked cards. And then he chooses 1 to go to the damage zone, and basically my other locked card will stay. Or my other card will stay because it would be put to the damage zone before the lock, if you guys know that ruling that I'm talking about. So he attacks with Vanguard, we PG with Aqua. He attacks with Rearguard, we guard. We go into Chocho, we go into Ange actually. We use Ange skill to bounce all of our cards, bounce all of his cards. Ange becomes super big, gets +1 drive, and then we reset our board, which is cool too. We put a card in our soul to countercharge and have a soul. Then we attack with 70, our cards restand themselves. We check 4 cards, no triggers, but it doesn't matter because our opponent took it and did not check the heal trigger. So that ended up being game 1 against Chaos Breaker. So this deck has a pretty good matchup against Link Joker just because of Fria. If we did not have Fria in that scenario, things might have went very differently. But usually we do have Fria, so it's usually not that big of a deal. But going into Riviere game 2, we're playing in Shadow Paladin. So our opponent goes first, uses the skill of their starter, check top, and then draw. We check top 7, we add the grade 3 to our hand, and we play a Fria. So we're starting off like our deck right, where any of our cards can't be blown just because we have this 1 Fria on the board. So we attack for 9, he takes it, and then we attack with Vanguard, and then Selena calls itself back. So we did a lot of damage like right off the bat just because of the crit trigger, so it was really good. But our opponent rides Vortimer, then attacks our Rearguard. We use choice skill to call over and then stride for free. We have double choice, which is like one of the best setups this deck can have. And then we have a lot of Riviere cards in our soul, so we give like all of our Rearguards plus 5k. So we attack for 28, then 28. He G-guards, and then we attack for 37. We Soul Blast 2 to restand 2, and he knew that he wouldn't be able to block it, so he takes it. He does 6 damage heal. So then he blocks the remaining ones of our attacks, which is unfortunate for us because he would have just died. But he does stride and go into Spectral, using the skill to get rid of Kaiden, give Vanguard skill, and then he calls Dark Heart Trumpeter off of Spectral skill. And then he uses Trumpeter to call Kaiden, Hoel skill on both to give 6k to Vanguard and 6k to itself, and then he countercharge 1, soul charge 1 because one of them was Kaiden. He attacks Vanguard for 16, and then he attacks Vanguard for 22. We no guard. And then he attacks Vanguard. We no guard. He takes 3 cards. None of them are crits. We get a draw trigger, power to Vanguard draw. And then he calls a card from his deck, and then we PG the second attack. He does 1 check, and then he attacks our Rearguard. We don't want that to happen because we want our double choice. As soon as we stride, he just decides to take his own damage, and yeah, so we just continue attacking as if he didn't already quit, just to see what we would have gotten, and we would have gotten crit draw, so he definitely would have died right there. So he just quit the game when we strode, but obviously, like, we would have won right there. We would have won on first stride initially if he had not 6 damage healed. So, like, this deck is very strong in the early game. Like, its early game pressure is actually insane, and that goes for most of the permitted decks in the set actually. But the third game we're playing against Aggies deck, which is bad for him because the first thought that I had is, oh my god, this deck's early game is insane, and he can't like check triggers to get out of my stuff. So I'm just gonna play as many things as possible. So I attack for 9, he gets to guard, then I attack for 17, then I attack with my rear guard. He attacks my rear guard, and then I intercept my ride, draw a card, and I'm attacking for 9, recalls itself to the board. I check heal and draw. So I put him to 5 damage before he even goes to grade 3. He can't use his Luard skill because he doesn't have any rear guards because he intercepted. And then he uses the skill of Dragabus, but he can't retire any of our cards because we have Fria on the board. He gets Noish, calling a card to the board, so he attacks for 14. Then he attacks Vanguard for 26. Gets a draw trigger power to rear guard. And then he attacks our rear guard, and we G-guard the rear guard just because we want it. We use Choice skill to make us stride into Riviere. We use the crit trigger to counter charge one, and then we use Riviere skill and Choice skill calling them back. Triple check. One is a heal trigger, put it all to Choice. We attack for 21, and then 21, and he basically could not block. So he takes that 6 damage, and yeah, that ends up being the game. But yeah, that has been the future fight for the Riviere deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did like the deck, or dislike the deck, or just like the video, be sure to leave a like on the video. Helps a lot more than you guys think. Also, be sure to subscribe to stay updated to the channel and to support the channel. Also, if you want to get a notification every time a video goes live, be sure to click the bell button next to the subscribe button. Also, check out our social medias in the description down below. It is Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then down there below are also ways to support the channel a little more than liking and subscribing if you would prefer to go that route. And those would be our Patreon and our merch store. But with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.